The massive space station Harmony Prime hung in the void like a silver city. Its gleaming towers reached out in all directions, home to over 2 million beings from across the galaxy. Today, the station buzzed with panic. The Galactic Commerce Union was dying, and everyone knew it. Ambassador Zekthor paced the length of his office, his forearms waving as he spoke into his communication device. The tall, blue-skinned Veldon had served the Commerce Union for 30 years, but he had never seen things this bad. Outside his window, fewer ships moved between the docking bays than usual. Trade was slowing to a crawl. The Crimson Void hit another convoy yesterday, reported Captain Molcar through the speaker. 12 cargo ships destroyed. The pirates took everything valuable and left the crews floating in escape pods. That makes 47 attacks this month. Zekthor stopped pacing. His large black eyes reflected the worry that filled his mind. The Crimson Void pirates had appeared 6 months ago, with technology that made them nearly impossible to catch. Their ships could disappear from all sensors, striking fast and vanishing before help could arrive. Every security force sent against them had failed. "What about the Nexari battle fleet?" Zekthor asked. "Destroyed 3 days ago. Admiral Kexanor lost 8 ships trying to protect the Centauri trade route. The pirates knew exactly where to hit them and when." The ambassador sat down heavily in his chair. The Commerce Union controlled trade across 3 galactic sectors, but the Crimson Void was making space travel too dangerous. Companies were canceling contracts. Entire worlds were running out of supplies. Soon, the economic system that held 50 planets together would collapse. A soft chime announced someone at his door. "Enter," Zekthor called out. Dr. Kelvar walked, in her 6 legs clicking on the metal floor. The Nexari scientist ran the research division at Harmony Prime, and her silver carapace gleamed under the office lights. She carried a datapad in one of her smaller arms. "I have been reviewing our options," she said, her voice making the clicking sounds typical of her species. "The situation is worse than we thought. Our best military analysts say the Crimson Void will control all major trade routes within 60 days. "Tell me something I do not know," Zekthor replied. Kelvar set the datapad on his desk. "There might be one possibility we have not considered. The humans." Zekthor stared at her. "The humans? Those primitive newcomers who just joined the galactic community 5 years ago? Are you joking?" "I am serious. They have established something called Terra Defense Solutions, a private security company. They claim they can handle situations that regular military forces cannot." The ambassador picked up the datapad and scrolled through the information. Humans were still a mystery to most galactic species. They came from a world they called Earth, located in a quiet arm of the galaxy. Most species considered them weak and backward. Their technology seemed simple compared to what the advanced civilizations possessed. "Look at their equipment," Zekthor said, pointing at images on the screen. "Their ships look like metal boxes with engines attached. Their weapons are basic projectile launchers. What could they possibly do against the Crimson Void?" Kelvar clicked her mandibles together, a sign of uncertainty. "I agree their technology appears primitive, but they have something unusual. Their combat records show they approach problems differently than we do. Very differently." "Different how?" "They do not follow standard military procedures. They make decisions that seem random, even foolish, yet somehow they achieve results." Zekthor stood up and walked to his window. Below he could see alien merchants arguing with station security. Fear was everywhere. People were scared to leave. The safety of major stations. The galaxy was becoming a dangerous place again, just like it had been centuries ago before the Commerce Union brought peace and order. "The Council will never approve hiring humans," he said. "Most members think they are barely civilized." "Then do not ask the Council," Kelvar replied. "You have emergency authority to hire security contractors. Use it." The ambassador turned around. "You want me to risk my career on a species that most people consider a joke? I want you to save the Commerce Union. Nothing else has worked." "What? Do we have to lose?" That afternoon, Zekthor sent a message to Terra Defense Solutions. He expected to wait days for a response. Instead, His communication device chimed within 2 hours. "This is Commander Jake Martinez," said a voice speaking clear galactic standard. "We received your request for security services. We can have a team at your location in 72 hours. "That fast?" Zekthor asked, surprised. "We keep ships ready for emergency deployment. From what we understand, the Crimson Void has been giving you trouble. We have experience with pirates who use stealth technology." 3 days later, Zekthor waited in Docking Bay 7 as a small human ship approached. The vessel looked exactly like what he expected from humans. It was boxy and gray, with none of the elegant curves that marked advanced starship design. Compared to the sleek alien vessels nearby, it looked like something built in a scrapyard. The ship landed with a heavy thud that made the deck plates vibrate. A ramp lowered, and 2 humans walked out. The first was a tall man with dark hair and brown skin. He wore a simple uniform with no decorations. The second was a shorter woman with blonde hair pulled back in a tight style. Both carried themselves like soldiers, but their equipment looked basic. "Ambassador Zekthor?" the man asked, extending his hand in the human greeting custom. "I am Commander Jake Martinez. This is Lieutenant Sophie Wells." Zekthor shook the offered hand, noting the firm grip. "Welcome to Harmony Prime. I must admit I am surprised you came so quickly." "Time matters in security work," Martinez replied. "Every day we wait, more people die." As they walked through the station corridors, other aliens stopped to stare at the humans. Some pointed and whispered. A few laughed openly. Zekthor felt embarrassed to be seen with them. Their reputation as a weak species made him look desperate. They entered the main conference room where the Emergency Security Committee was meeting. 12 representatives from different species sat around a curved table. When the humans entered, conversation stopped. Everyone stared. "You actually hired humans?" asked General Thexmol, his scales changing color with shock. "Are you insane?" Martinez and Wells took seats at the table without showing any reaction to the insult. They placed a small device on the surface that projected a 3-dimensional star map. "Let me show you how we plan to stop the Crimson Void," Martinez said calmly. The room erupted in laughter. The laughter died slowly as Commander Martinez waited patiently. He did not look angry or embarrassed. Lieutenant Wells sat beside him with the same calm expression. When the room finally became quiet, Martinez touched his device again. The star map showed the Kepler corridor, a dangerous stretch of space where 3 security teams had been destroyed in the past month. "The cargo convoy leaves tomorrow," Martinez said. 12 freighters carrying medical supplies to the colonies. "The Crimson Void always attacks convoys in this area. They know we are coming." General Thexmol's scales shifted to a darker color. "Exactly why this mission will fail. The pirates have perfect intelligence about our movements. They use cloaking technology that makes them invisible to our sensors. How do you plan to fight enemies you cannot see?" "We do not plan to fight them the way you do," Wells replied. Her voice was steady and sure. "Your previous security teams tried to protect the convoy using standard formation tactics. They failed because they played by rules the pirates already knew how to beat." Ambassador Zekthor leaned forward. "What will you do differently?" Martinez stood up and walked to the large viewing window. Through it, they could see the human ship in the docking bay. It looked tiny compared to the massive alien vessels nearby. "We will not try to protect the convoy," he said. "We will let the pirates attack it." The room exploded with angry voices. Several alien representatives stood up and began shouting. Dr. Kelvar had to bang her arm on the table 3 times before order returned. "You plan to sacrifice the cargo ships?" she asked. "No," Martinez replied. "We plan to use them as bait." 2 days later, the convoy moved through the Kepler corridor. 12 large freighters traveled in a tight formation, carrying enough medical supplies to treat sick people on 6 different worlds. The human ship TDS Guardian flew beside them, looking small and weak compared to the massive cargo vessels. Captain Vortek commanded the lead freighter. The Sindarian had been flying cargo runs for 20 years, but he had never been more scared. His ship carried vaccines that could save thousands of lives, yet his only protection was 2 humans in an old patrol boat. "Human vessel," he called. over the radio. My sensors show nothing, but I feel like we are being watched. We know, Martinez replied from the Guardian. They have been following us for 6 hours. 3 ships, maybe 4. They are staying just outside detection range. On the Guardian's bridge, Lieutenant Wells worked at a control station that looked nothing like standard alien equipment. Chief Engineer Riley Parker and Communications Specialist Nick Thompson had spent days connecting human devices to the ship's alien systems. The result was a mess of cables and jury-rigged connections that somehow worked. I am getting heat signatures, Wells reported. Very faint, but they are there. The cloaking devices hide them from regular sensors, but they still generate warmth. Parker looked up from his station. His hands were covered with grease from working on the improvised equipment. The electromagnetic pulse mines are ready. Thermal tracking system is online. This is either going to work great or kill us all. Martinez smiled. Those are good odds for humans. The attack came exactly where they expected it. As the convoy entered the narrowest part of the corridor, space suddenly filled with weapons fire. The Crimson Void ships appeared like ghosts, their black hulls barely visible against the stars. They moved fast, firing particle beams that could cut through starship armor like paper. The cargo ship captains immediately began screaming over the radio. Captain Vortek's voice rose above the others. They are everywhere. We cannot see them until they fire. Request immediate assistance. But instead of charging to help, the Guardian did nothing. Martinez watched as the pirate ships swooped around the convoy like hunters circling prey. Their weapons damaged several freighters but did not destroy them. The pirates wanted the cargo intact. Now, Martinez said quietly. Wells pressed a button, and 20 small devices shot out from the Guardian. They looked like simple metal balls, but each one contained an electromagnetic pulse generator and a thermal sensor. The mines spread out in a wide pattern, invisible to the pirate sensors but tracking the heat signatures of the cloaked ships. The pirates never saw them coming. As the first Crimson Void ship passed near a mine, the device exploded in a burst of electromagnetic energy. The ship's cloaking system failed instantly, and it appeared on everyone's sensors like a bright star. Target acquired, Wells said, firing. The Guardian's weapons were not advanced, but they were accurate. While the pirate ship tried to restart its cloaking system, human projectile weapons hammered its hull. The alien weapons might have been more powerful, but the humans knew exactly where to aim. 2 more mines exploded, revealing more pirate ships. The Crimson Void formation, which had seemed so dangerous moments before, suddenly became confused. Their main advantage was gone. All ships, this is Martinez, the commander said over the radio. Ramming speed. Target the largest pirate vessel. Captain Vortek could not believe what he heard. You want us to ram them? We are cargo ships, not warships. Trust me. The Guardian accelerated toward the biggest pirate ship. Instead of trying to avoid the attack, the pirates turned to meet it. They expected a normal space battle with long-range weapons and careful maneuvering. They did not expect humans to close to point-blank range. At the last second, the Guardian changed course and slammed into the pirate ship's side. Both vessels shook from the impact, but the humans had reinforced their ship's hull. Magnetic clamps shot out from the Guardian, locking the 2 ships together. Boarding party. Go, Martinez shouted. Lieutenant Wells led 6 humans through an airlock and onto the pirate ship. The aliens inside were not prepared for close combat. Their weapons were designed for space battles, not fighting in narrow corridors. The humans carried simple shotguns and wore basic armor, but they moved through the ship like they owned it. The pirates had never fought humans before. They did not understand human tactics or psychology. When Wells kicked down a door and charged into a room full of armed aliens, they expected her to follow standard boarding procedures. Instead, she threw a smoke grenade and attacked while they could not see. Within minutes, the largest pirate ship was under human control. Wells found the bridge and used the ship's communication system to contact the other Crimson Void vessels. This is Lieutenant Wells of Terra Defense Solutions, she announced. Your flagship is captured. Your cloaking technology is useless. You have 30 seconds to surrender or we will disable your ships one by one. The remaining pirates tried to run, but more electromagnetic pulse mines were waiting. As their cloaking systems failed, the cargo ships began firing at them with mining, lasers, and construction tools. The pirates found themselves trapped between human tactics they did not understand and angry freight captains who were tired of being robbed. The battle ended in less than an hour. 3 pirate ships were captured, and 2 more were disabled. The humans suffered minor damage to their ship and no casualties. The cargo convoy continued to its destination with a story that would spread across the galaxy. Captain Vortex stared at his communication screen as Commander Martinez appeared. "How did you know that would work?" Martinez shrugged. "Pirates expect their enemies to be afraid. They rely on fear and superior technology. But humans have been fighting pirates for thousands of years. We know that the best way to beat them is to be crazier than they are." As news of the victory reached Harmony Prime, Ambassador Zekthor felt something he had not experienced in months. Hope. But he also wondered what he had unleashed by hiring humans. If they could defeat the Crimson Void so easily, what else were they capable of? In the depths of space, other pirate groups received reports of the battle. For the first time in their careers, they felt something they rarely experienced: fear of humans. News of the human victory spread through the galaxy faster than light-speed communications. Within days, every major news network was telling the story of how 2 humans in an old patrol boat had defeated the feared Crimson Void pirates. Some reports called it luck. Others claimed the story was exaggerated. But shipping companies began asking questions about hiring human security teams. Captain Vorhex of the Sindarian Empire was not interested in luck or stories. He needed results. The tall, gray-skinned alien sat in his command center on the planet, Taurus 7, reading intelligence reports that made his blood run cold. In 3 days, the most important diplomatic summit in 50 years would begin on his world. Leaders from 12 different species would gather to sign the new trade accords, a treaty that could bring peace to the disputed border regions. The problem was that many powerful groups wanted to stop the summit. His security teams had already uncovered 6 different assassination plots. More were probably hidden. Traditional security methods were failing because the enemies kept changing their tactics. "Sir," his aide reported, "we have received responses from the security contractors. We contacted. The Nexari battle group wants 2 million credits. The Velden Special Forces require a month to prepare. The Corvani mercenaries will not work with our existing security teams." Vorhex drummed his clawed fingers on his desk. "What about the humans?" "Terra. Defense Solutions responded within hours. They can have a team here tomorrow for half the price of anyone else." "That seems too good to be true." His aide shifted nervously. "There is one concern, sir. Our security chief says working with humans will be impossible. He believes they will ignore all protocols and create chaos." Vorhex had heard similar complaints from other military officers. Humans had a reputation for breaking rules and causing problems. But they also had a reputation for winning. After the Kepler Corridor incident, that was becoming harder to ignore. "Hire them," he decided. "But make it clear they must follow our security procedures." The human transport ship arrived, the next morning landing at the military spaceport with typical human bluntness. No elegant approach or ceremonial maneuvers, just a fast descent and a hard landing that made the ground shake. Colonel Ben Rodriguez stepped off the ship first. He was a big man with dark skin and gray hair, wearing a simple uniform with no decorations. Behind him came his team: Medic Lisa, Chen, demolitions expert Tony Williams, and intelligence officer Karen Davis. They carried basic equipment and looked nothing like the elite security forces that usually protected diplomatic events. Security Chief Malthor met them at the landing. Bed. The four-armed Sindarian wore full dress armor and carried enough weapons to fight a small war. His voice was cold when he spoke. "I am in charge of summit security. You will follow my orders exactly. Any deviation from established protocols will result in your immediate removal." Rodriguez nodded calmly. "Understood. Can you show us the security arrangements?" They toured the summit location, a massive conference center built into the side of a mountain. The building had one main entrance, multiple emergency exits, and enough defensive systems to stop an army. Malthor pointed out guard positions, sensor arrays and patrol routes with obvious pride. "We have planned for every possible threat," he said. "Assassination attempts, bombing attacks, orbital strikes. Nothing can penetrate our defenses." Karen Davis raised her hand. "What about shapeshifters?" Malthor stopped walking. "What about them?" "The morphic species can change their appearance to look like anyone. Have you tested your security against infiltrators who could be disguised as delegates or staff?" "Morphic shapeshifters are not a threat," Malthor replied. "They are a peaceful species that has never been involved in violence." "That you know of," Davis said quietly. That evening, the human team met in their assigned quarters. The rooms were small and basic, located far from the main security center. It was clear they were not considered important. Rodriguez spread building plans across a table. "Something is wrong with their security setup. Too many blind spots, too many assumptions." Tony Williams studied the structural diagrams. These load-bearing walls could be compromised with the right explosives. Someone could bring down entire sections of the building. Lisa Chen reviewed the medical facilities. "They have no plans for treating shapeshifter toxins or neural disruptors. If someone uses non-standard weapons, people will die while they figure out how to help them." Davis looked up from her computer. "I have been researching recent morphic movements. 3 vessels left their home system last week. Destination unknown. That is unusual for a species that rarely travels." Rodriguez made his decision. "We investigate, on our own. Malthor will not listen to warnings about threats he does not understand." The next day, summit delegates began arriving. The conference center filled with aliens from across the galaxy. Rodriguez watched from a security checkpoint as leaders he recognized from news reports walked past. Each one represented billions of people who wanted peace. But Davis had made a disturbing discovery. Using human intelligence techniques that seemed crude but worked, she had identified 5 staff members who did not exist in any official records. Their identification papers were perfect, but their backgrounds were completely false. "Shapeshifters," she reported to Rodriguez. "They replaced real staff members weeks ago. They have been planning this for a long time." Rodriguez tried to contact Malthor, but the security chief was busy with formal ceremonies. When they finally spoke, Malthor dismissed the human concerns. "Your evidence is insufficient," he said. "I will not disrupt the summit based on suspicions." That night, the assassination attempt began exactly as the humans had predicted, but it did not start with violence. It started with confusion. During the opening ceremony, 3 delegates suddenly collapsed. Medical teams rushed to help them, but their equipment could not identify the problem. The symptoms did not match any known poison or weapon. While everyone focused on the medical emergency, Davis noticed something wrong. 2 security guards were moving through the building in a pattern that made no sense. They were not responding to the crisis like the others. "Shapeshifters," she whispered into her radio. "They are using the confusion to get into position." Rodriguez and his team moved quickly through the building, ignoring established patrol routes and security protocols. Malthor's voice filled their radios, ordering them to return to their assigned positions. They ignored him. Williams found the first bomb hidden inside a wall maintenance panel. It was designed to bring down the main conference hall during the signing ceremony. While he worked to disarm it, Chen discovered that the collapsed delegates had been poisoned with a morphic neurotoxin that specifically targeted their species' nervous systems. Davis cornered one of the fake security guards in a service corridor. When she confronted him, his appearance began to shift and change. The morphic assassin tried to transform into her shape, but Davis was ready. She used a neural disruptor that froze the shapeshifter between forms, leaving him helpless. The battle for the summit happened in shadows and service tunnels, while the main security force tried to restore order in the conference hall. The humans fought enemies that could look like anyone, and weapons that their sensors could not detect. They used tactics that made no sense to anyone watching, but worked perfectly against opponents who expected traditional responses. Rodriguez found himself face to face with a shapeshifter who had taken the form of Malthor himself. For a moment, he could not tell which one was real. Then he remembered something about human psychology that aliens often forgot. Humans were very good At reading behavior and body language, you stand wrong, he told the fake Malthor. Sindarians keep their secondary arms folded when they are relaxed. You keep them at your sides like a human. The shapeshifter realized his mistake too late. Rodriguez stunned him with a simple electric weapon that the aliens considered primitive, but effective. When the crisis ended, 12 morphic infiltrators had been captured and 5 major bombs had been disarmed. The summit continued as planned and the trade accords were signed. But the human methods had broken every security protocol and created chaos in the carefully planned procedures. Malthor confronted Rodriguez afterward. Your team ignored direct orders and endangered the entire summit. You should be arrested. Rodriguez looked at the aliens around them. Delegates who would have been dead were now talking and laughing. Did we save lives? That is not the point. That is exactly the point. Captain Voorhex watched the argument from across the room. The humans had succeeded where his best security teams would have failed, but they had done it in ways that made traditional military minds uncomfortable. He began to understand why other species found humans so confusing. They got results, but nobody could predict how they would do it. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Defense Consortium took place on the massive space station's Central Command. Representatives from 50 worlds gathered in the Great Assembly Hall, their faces showing fear that had not been seen for generations. The threat they faced was unlike anything in recorded history. Fleet Admiral Thalazar stood before the giant display screen that showed the edge of known space. Red markers indicated where entire star systems had simply vanished. No distress calls, no survivors, no wreckage, just empty space where billions of people had lived only days before. The Void Swarm has consumed 12 systems in the past month, the Admiral announced. His voice echoed through the silent hall. Our best scientists believe it is a hive-mind species that absorbs all organic and technological matter. Every fleet we have sent against them has been destroyed or assimilated. Ambassador Zekthor raised one of his forearms. What about evacuation? Can we save the civilian populations? Impossible. The swarm moves faster than our evacuation ships. They appear without warning and consume everything within hours. We estimate they will reach the core worlds within 30 days. The hall filled with worried voices. Some delegates suggested retreating to the Outer Rim territories. Others wanted to negotiate with the swarm. A few spoke of using forbidden weapons that had been banned for centuries. Dr. Kelvar clicked her mandibles together for attention. There is one option we have not discussed. The humans. The voices stopped. Every eye in the hall turned toward her. The humans? Admiral Thalazar asked. What can they possibly do against a threat that has destroyed our most powerful battle? Fleets? They have succeeded where conventional tactics have failed before. Perhaps their unconventional methods could work against an enemy that adapts to standard military doctrine. General Thexamol's scales shifted to an angry red color. This is madness. The Void Swarm has consumed civilizations that were building starships when humans were still living in caves. What can primitive tactics do against such power? But as the debate continued, more reports arrived. The swarm had taken 3 more systems. Time was running out. 2 days later, General Alex Turner stepped off the transport ship at Central Command. The tall human wore a simple military uniform with few decorations, but his presence commanded attention. Behind him came Captain Maya Johnson, a woman with short red hair and sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. General Turner, Admiral Thalazar said, I must be honest. Most of our military commanders believe this mission is hopeless. The Void Swarm has never been defeated, Turner nodded calmly. That is because nobody has tried to fight them like humans fight. They moved to the tactical center where holographic displays showed the swarm's advance. The enemy moved in perfect coordination, their dark ships flowing through space like liquid death. Every time a defense fleet engaged them, the swarm quickly adapted and overwhelmed the defenders. Your previous attacks followed predictable patterns, Captain Johnson observed. Standard fleet formations, logical targeting priorities, defensive positions that make military sense. The swarm learns these patterns and counters them. How else can we fight? Asked Commander Veltar of the Nexari fleet. Military tactics exist for good reasons. Without them, battles become chaos. Turner smiled. Exactly. The human battle plan made no sense to anyone except humans. Instead of protecting Nexus Prime with defensive formations, they would deliberately create weak points in their lines. Instead of targeting the obvious command ships, they would attack random vessels. Instead of maintaining communication discipline, they would flood all channels with meaningless chatter. This is not strategy, Admiral Thalazar protested. This is madness. Sometimes madness works better than logic, Turner replied. When the Void Swarm arrived at Nexus Prime, they found what they expected. A desperate defense fleet arranged in standard formation around the planet. The alien commanders followed their carefully planned defensive strategy, while the human ships took positions that seemed random and illogical. The swarm attacked with overwhelming force, their dark vessels moving in perfect coordination. Within minutes, they had analyzed the defensive formation and begun adapting their tactics to exploit every weakness. The alien fleet fought bravely but found themselves being pushed back toward the planet. Then the humans did something that no military analyst could have predicted. They broke formation and attacked their own defensive line. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake led her fighter squadron in a charge that appeared to be aimed at the alien defenders. At the last second, her ships turned and slammed into a group of swarm vessels that had been moving to exploit a gap in the defensive line. The collision destroyed several enemy ships but also damaged human fighters. The swarm tried to process this information. Why would defenders attack their own forces? It made no tactical sense. While the hive mind struggled to understand the human action, Marine Colonel Frank Wright ordered ground forces to retreat from perfectly good defensive positions and advance toward areas where they would be surrounded. Captain Johnson commanded the destroyer Earth's Fury in what appeared to be a panic-driven flight from the battle. But instead of running away from the swarm, she led them toward a group of civilian evacuation ships. Every military doctrine said this was wrong, but at the last moment, the evacuation ships revealed hidden weapons and caught the pursuing swarm. Vessels in a crossfire, the Void Swarm's greatest strength became its weakness. The hive mind that allowed perfect coordination could not understand actions that made no logical sense. When humans did things that violated every rule of warfare, the swarm could not predict their next move. Turner watched the battle from the ZAO command center as his forces executed a plan that looked like complete chaos. Human ships attacked targets that had no strategic value. Ground forces abandoned strong points to charge into obvious traps. Fighter squadrons ignored enemy command ships to attack random targets. But every seemingly insane action had a hidden purpose. When Blake crashed her fighters into enemy vessels, she was targeting the ships that coordinated swarm movements in specific sectors. When Wright ordered his Marines to advance into surrounded positions, he was drawing enemy forces away from civilian shelters. When Johnson led swarm ships toward evacuation vessels, she was guiding them into prepared ambush zones. The aliens watched in confusion as human tactics that should have failed began to work. The Void Swarm, faced with enemies who acted in ways their hive mind could not predict, began to make mistakes. Their perfect coordination broke down as different parts of the fleet received conflicting instructions. How is this possible? Admiral Thalazar asked as he watched swarm formations dissolve into confusion. The swarm adapts to logical threats, Turner explained. But adaptation requires being able to predict what comes next. Humans are very good at being unpredictable when we need to be. The battle reached its climax when the swarm attempted to retreat and regroup. Any logical military commander would have let them go and claimed victory. Instead, Turner ordered a pursuit that split his forces into small groups and sent them in every direction at once. The swarm expected the humans to follow standard pursuit tactics. They prepared to turn and destroy the scattered human forces. But the human groups did not attack the retreating enemy. Instead, they began attacking each other in what appeared to be friendly fire incidents. The swarm stopped retreating to observe this strange behavior. While they tried to understand why humans were fighting among themselves, the scattered human groups suddenly turned in perfect coordination and attacked the confused swarm vessels from every direction at once. The fake fighting had been a deception. The humans had used their reputation for chaos to mask a carefully planned ambush. The swarm, trying to analyze human behavior that made no sense, had fallen into a trap disguised as madness. When the battle ended, the Void Swarm had suffered its first major defeat. Half their fleet was destroyed, and the survivors fled deeper into unknown space. Nexus Prime was saved, and the evacuation of the core worlds was no longer necessary. Turner stood on the observation deck of Central Command, looking out at the human ships that had made victory possible. They still looked simple and crude compared to alien vessels, but nobody was laughing at them anymore. Admiral Thalazar approached him with a mixture of respect and confusion. "How did you know that would work?" Turner thought for a moment before answering. "Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We learned that the best way to win is to make your enemy think they understand you, then do something completely different. The swarm thought they had figured out how we fight. They were wrong. As news of the victory spread through the galaxy, something changed in how other species looked at humans. They were no longer seen as primitive newcomers who got lucky. They were recognized as something far more dangerous, an unpredictable force that could turn military science upside down and win battles that should have been impossible." 6 months after the Battle of Nexus Prime, the galaxy was a different place. The massive space station Central Command had been expanded to include a new wing dedicated to something that had never existed before: the Human Strategic Advisory Division. The gleaming corridors buzzed with activity as alien military officers came to learn from the species they had once dismissed as primitive. Admiral Jake Martinez walked through the halls of his new headquarters, still amazed at how much had changed. The man who had started as a simple commander protecting cargo convoys now held one of the most important positions in galactic defense. His uniform bore insignia from a dozen different worlds, each one representing an alliance with humanity. "Admiral," his aide announced, "the Galactic Council is ready for your presentation." Martinez entered the great assembly hall where he had once been laughed at by alien representatives. Now those same beings stood and applauded as he took the podium. The change in their attitude was complete, but Martinez remembered when things had been very different. 6 months ago, he began. "You asked if we were insane for thinking humans could help with your security problems. Today I want to talk about a different kind of insanity." The hall fell silent. Representatives from 50 worlds leaned forward to hear what the human had to say. The insanity of fighting the same way for thousands of years and expecting different results. On the main display screen, images showed the current state of galactic security. Trade routes that had been terrorized by pirates were now safe. Diplomatic summits proceeded without fear of assassination. Most importantly, the Void Swarm had not been seen since their defeat at Nexus Prime. "Human success does not come from better technology," Martinez continued. "It comes from thinking differently about problems. When everyone else sees a wall, humans look for ways to go around it, under it, or through it in ways nobody expects." Ambassador Zekthor stood up from his seat. The Veldin who had first hired humans now served as the galactic liaison for human military services. "Admiral Martinez, could you explain how human tactical thinking differs from conventional military doctrine?" Martinez smiled. "Conventional doctrine assumes your enemy is logical. It assumes they will do what makes military sense. Humans assume the opposite. We assume our enemies are smart, but we also assume they think like everyone else. That gives us an advantage." Dr. Kelevar, now the director of the Institute for Applied Chaos Theory, added her voice. "Human unpredictability has become a valuable tool for understanding complex problems. We have applied human thinking methods to challenges beyond military strategy." The display screen changed to show civilian applications of human problem solving. Cities that had struggled with traffic problems for decades found solutions when human advisors suggested completely changing how people thought about transportation. Manufacturing plants increased efficiency by adopting human concepts of controlled chaos in production lines. General Thexmal, whose scales had once turned red with anger at human methods, now wore the insignia of the Human-Alien Tactical Integration Program. "I will admit," he said, "that working with humans has been the most difficult and most rewarding experience of my military career. They force us to question everything we thought we knew about strategy. But not everyone in the galaxy was happy with humanity's rising influence. On the Outer Rim territories, some species viewed human expansion with suspicion. They worried that humans would eventually use their tactical advantages against former allies. Martinez addressed these concerns directly. Some of you fear that humans will become a threat to galactic peace. I understand this worry. Any species that can defeat enemies like the Void Swarm could potentially become dangerous. But humans have something that makes us different from conquering species. He paused to let his words sink in. We have always been better at making friends than making enemies. Human history is full of former enemies who became allies. We prefer cooperation to conquest, because cooperation gives us more interesting problems to solve. Captain Maya Johnson, now leading the Human Fleet Integration Program, took the podium next. Every human military advisor working with alien forces has orders to teach rather than command. We want our allies to understand human methods, so they can adapt them to their own needs. A galaxy where everyone thinks the same way is a vulnerable galaxy. The presentation continued with reports from human teams working across known space. Commander Sophie Wells had established training programs for alien security forces, teaching them to think beyond conventional tactics. Colonel Ben Rodriguez ran diplomatic protection services that combined human unpredictability with alien precision. Each success story built on the foundation laid during those first desperate missions. But the most important development was happening in places like the Nixari Research Institute, where alien scientists worked alongside human advisors to develop new approaches to old problems. The combination of alien advanced technology with human creative thinking was producing innovations nobody had imagined possible. The question you asked 6 months ago was whether we were insane for hiring humans, Martinez said, as his presentation neared its end. Today I want to ask a different question. Are you insane if you do not have humans on your team? The audience laughed, but it was not the mocking laughter he had heard before. This was the laughter of beings who understood a joke and appreciated the truth behind it. Fleet Admiral Thalazar stood to address the assembly. The Galactic Defense Consortium has voted unanimously to establish permanent human advisory positions in all major military commands. We have also approved funding for human-alien joint training programs and research facilities. The formal business of the meeting continued, but Martinez found his mind wandering to the future. Humanity had proven itself in combat against pirates, assassins, and world-consuming swarms, but the real test would be peace. Could humans adapt their creative problem-solving to building rather than fighting? After the meeting, Martinez walked to the observation deck where he could see Earth's blue surface in the distance. Human ships moved between the stars alongside vessels from dozens of other worlds. The galaxy that had once seen humans as backward, primitives now competed to hire human advisors and learn human methods. Lieutenant Sarah Blake joined him at the window. She now commanded a mixed squadron of human and alien pilots who trained together to develop new fighting techniques. Do you think we have changed things for the better? She asked. Martinez considered the question carefully. We have shown the galaxy that there is always another way to solve a problem. Whether that makes things better depends on how wisely everyone uses that knowledge. Across the galaxy, the question that had once been asked in disbelief was now asked with anticipation. When facing a difficult challenge, species that had existed for millennia found themselves wondering, what would humans do? The answer was usually something nobody expected, something that broke conventional rules, and something that somehow worked better than traditional methods. Humans had not conquered the galaxy through superior force or advanced technology. They had won something more valuable: the respect of beings who had learned that thinking differently was not insanity, but wisdom. In the distant reaches of space, new threats would eventually emerge. Unknown enemies would develop weapons and tactics that challenged everything the galactic community thought they understood about warfare. When those challenges came, the galaxy would be ready with something it had never possessed before: the ability to think like humans. The age of predictable conflicts was over. The age of creative solutions had begun. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, potential enemies were learning to fear not just human weapons or human courage, but something far more dangerous: human imagination applied to the ancient art of war. The galaxy had asked if hiring humans was insane. The answer had turned out to be yes, it was insane. Insanely effective.